My name is Elena Vargas. I'm 43, and I build things for a living. Houses, decks, kitchens, the kind of honest work that leaves sawdust in your hair and a clear line between what stands and what falls. Clarity is my favorite part of the job. Lately, my personal life has been the opposite of clear. I met Aaron Hale a year ago during a coffee shop renovation. He manages the place. I was the contractor. He learned the difference between a brad nailer and a finish nailer. I learned that patience looks good on a man who listens more than he talks. We were both divorced, both outdoorsy, both convinced we weren't racing toward remarriage. He made espresso like a ritual. I liked the ritual. Then there's Kendra Miles. According to Aaron, they dated for a few months in college, decided they were better as friends, and never looked back. In practice, never looked back meant she remained a permanent fixture. Advice, opinions, plans, traditions. Kendra would text during our dinners about which movie Aaron always likes and which hiking trail he hates even if he says he doesn't. She said it like she was being helpful. I told myself it was history being untidy. The night everything cracked, Aaron hosted a small grill night. His place, his deck, string lights he insisted were festive, not corny, 3 couples, and Kendra. She arrived early, breezing through the kitchen like she belonged there, rearranging spices, tasting the marinade with the back of a spoon. "You'll overcook the ribeyes if you go by time and not by feel," she told Aaron, turning to me with a smile that didn't touch her eyes. "He always forgets that." "I remember," Aaron said, soft. "Thanks, Ken." He calls her Ken. I file that away next to the dozen photos in his hallway where she stands at his shoulder. Graduations, Halloween, cheap wine smiles. My smile held. I poured drinks, asked a guest about her new job, made space for the night to stay easy. After dinner, we drifted to the deck. Someone brought up city policy. Inevitably, it turned into a broader values conversation. No one was extreme, just opinionated. Mine differed from Kendra's. At first, it was cordial, the kind of sparring that can even be fun. But every time I finished a thought, Kendra looked at Aaron, expectant, like he'd deliver the closing argument for her. When he didn't, her tone sharpened. "That's not accurate," she said finally, cutting across me, as if speaking over a radio with static. "You're missing context, but it's okay. This stuff isn't your lane." My lane. I thought of my crews, the women I mentor on site who double knot their boots and check every anchor twice. I thought of the way Kendra kept correcting, as if I were a blind corner to be warned about. "We can disagree without dismissing," I said, level. "I'm listening to you. I'd appreciate the same." She blinked, surprised. Then, sweetness, like frosting over a too-dry cake. "Of course. I didn't mean it that way." She turned to Aaron. "You know I didn't." Aaron's eyes flicked between us. He hates conflict. He's said that. He's also said Kendra feels things big, and it's easier to let her win small stuff. Sometimes the small stuff is where rot starts. The conversation limped on. The guests felt it, the tightness, the way sound thinned. Eventually, people began to stand, hugging goodbyes on the pretense of early mornings. Kendra was first to leave. She rose gracefully, set down her glass with theatrical care, and said to Aaron, "Call me later?" It sounded like a question with a right answer. He nodded. "Yeah." When the door shut behind her, the deck exhaled. We stacked plates, gathered forks, moved inside. I should have let the evening end in silence. Instead, I tried to stitch the rip. "Do you see what happens?" I asked, fielding a handful of forks into the sink. I disagree with her, politely, and suddenly I'm out of my lane. "And you—" I stopped. Aaron's face was closed, the way faces are when someone is bracing to disappoint you. "L," he said. He only calls me that when he's soft or when he's about to be a coward. "You embarrassed her." I asked for respect. "She doesn't handle conflict well." "And I'm supposed to?" I kept my voice even. "Aaron, has it occurred to you that your ex doesn't like your girlfriend very much?" "She's not, Elena. She hasn't been my girlfriend in 2 decades. She's family." "Family that never left the house," I said. Gesturing at the kitchen she rearranged like her own. I could hear the brittle edge in my voice and hated it. "I'm not a threat to you. I'm asking you to stop treating me like a guest in a relationship I didn't sign up for." He rubbed his eyes, the way he does when he's tired or ashamed. "Look, this is simple. You should apologize to Kendra." The sentence landed with the soft thud of something dropped from too high to bounce. Why? The tone. You made her feel small. She was upset. If you just apologize, this whole thing goes away. It's strange how quiet a house can get in the moment you understand the shape of your rank. There were still noises, the refrigerator motor, the ice maker clacking, but all I could hear was the arithmetic of this triangle. Kendra's feelings, Aaron's fear of upsetting her, my request for basic dignity. Two fit, one didn't. No, I said. He stared like I'd failed a test he was sure I'd pass. His voice came out thin. If you don't apologize, I don't know how we... Elena, she was here before you, he said, almost rote, like repeating a rule handed down, and she's more important than you. The words weren't loud or spiteful. They were worse, casual, practiced. A truth spoken so often it had polished itself into something smooth enough to swallow. I set the dish towel down. I didn't throw anything. I didn't plead. I didn't explain that I'd promised myself, after my marriage, that I'd never again compete with a ghost for a seat at the table. My daughter lives with her dad, and co-parenting taught me that love that refuses to make room is not love, it's custody. I looked at Aaron for a long time, the kind of looking that records a moment for later, when you'll question if you overstated what you heard. I wanted to give him time to rewind, to say he didn't mean it, that he was exhausted, that Kendra had riled him up and he'd fallen into old grooves. He didn't. I collected my keys from the little stone bowl by the door. My boots sounded too loud on the polished floor. Aaron said my name once, like it might become an apology by the end of the syllables. It didn't. Outside, the air smelled like charcoal and night-blooming jasmine from the neighbor's fence. I walked to my truck. The engine turned over on the first try. Clarity, finally, in the most brutal form it comes, as the absence of argument. Driving away, I didn't look back at the window. I didn't want to see if he'd gone to it. I wanted the clean cut. On the freeway, the lights slid over the hood like thin rivers. My phone began to buzz. First one text, then a stack. I flipped it face down in the cup holder and drove to the future I hadn't planned for. When I put on mascara that afternoon and told myself, it'll be just steaks and easy conversation. At home, I showered the smoke from my hair and left my phone off. For the first time in months, I slept like I'd poured the foundation level and true. In the morning, 12 missed calls. I read, didn't respond, went to a job site, checked anchoring straps, double-checked guardrails. You learn something when scaffolding fails. The fall is sudden. The compromises that caused it were slow. Kendra hadn't pushed me off any platform. Aaron had asked me to apologize to the person shaking the planks. Day 3. The text slowed, but the tone sharpened. We need to talk. You're overreacting. Please come back. Then, I didn't mean it. I swear. Then, later, when mea culpa didn't work, you owe her an apology. She's fragile. That evening, someone knocked. Through the peephole, Aaron, clutching contrition like a bouquet he forgot to buy. I could have pretended not to be home, but I am not a coward. I opened the door and stayed in the doorway, holding the line like a threshold means something. Can I come in? He asked, voice small. I don't think that's a good idea, I said. But you can talk. He looked past me, at the couch where we'd fallen asleep on Sunday afternoons, at the kitchen where we'd danced to a dumb playlist while waiting for pasta to boil. He looked like a man who'd found himself on the wrong side of a door he assumed would always open. What I said was horrible, he began. I didn't mean it. Yes, I said softly. You did. That's why it fit so easily in your mouth. He flinched. She's like family. I can't lose her. I didn't ask you to, I said. I asked you not to lose yourself, and I won't lose myself to someone else's history. His eyes shone. We can fix this. Maybe, I said, but not while an ex writes the rules. We stood there in this doorway, two people and the ghost of a third. In my chest, something heavy and long looked up, as if to ask, are we done doing this? I need time, I said, and you need to decide if you want a partner or a warden. I closed the door gently. And for the first time since the lights went up over Aaron's deck, I believed in the kind of clarity you can build a life on, not because it doesn't hurt, because it holds. The door clicked shut on Aaron, and the apartment resumed its ordinary sounds, the soft hum of the fridge, the relentless tick of the kitchen clock, a distant elevator ding. I stood there with my palm on the cool metal, as if the door needed me to keep it shut. Maybe I needed it to keep me shut. 3 days is a long time to hold a line. It's also no time at all when you're practicing a skill you should have learned a decade ago, choosing yourself and not apologizing for it. Day 1, I worked a duplex trim out with my crew. Pine stacked neatly, miter saws singing in perfect thirds. Work is merciful, it rewards what's measurable. By lunch, my phone had begun its frantic choreography. Missed calls, texts that tried on different tones like outfits for a meeting. Conciliatory, urgent, annoyed, pleading. You left. We should talk. You misunderstood me. Please pick up. I didn't mean it. Then later that night, a final one, short and blunt. You owe her an apology. She's fragile. Fragile. I pictured Kendra at the grill, instructing like a head chef, rearranging a home that wasn't hers with the efficiency of entitlement. Some people cultivate fragility the way others cultivate herbs in a sunny window. Watered daily, trimmed for drama, useful in every dish. Day 2, a small thunderstorm rolled in at 3 p.m., the sky turning pewter over the job site. We wrapped the blades, covered the compressors, and watched rivulets chase each other down the driveway we'd graded yesterday. My apprentice Zoe asked if I was okay. I told her the truth. I'm learning not to bargain with myself. She nodded like she knew exactly what that meant, and I felt suddenly ancient and newly born. That evening, I left my phone face down and cooked something slow. Chickpeas simmered with garlic and tomatoes, a heel of Parmesan reined in at the end. When you build for a living, you learn about heat, how a thing changes when you keep it steady long enough. I ate at the counter and tried to name the taste of freedom. It wasn't relief yet. It was quiet, the kind that spooks you because you can finally hear your own thoughts. Day 3 is when night draws the worst of the feelings to the surface. The building across from mine throws a pale sheet of light onto my ceiling, and the street below is all engine misfires and laughter that isn't yours. I had just turned off the lamp when the knock came, soft, then insistent. Midnight testing the doorman in me. Through the peephole, Aaron again, hood up against the mist, eyes swollen from lack of sleep, or from the kind of crying a man pretends is just allergy season. I didn't want to teach him that proximity is a password, but kindness is a habit with muscle memory, and I'm not in the business of making people smaller than they showed me they are, just more honest with myself about their size. I opened the door to the chain. "L," he said, voice hoarse. The nickname tried to slip past my ribs. "Please, just 5 minutes." "There's rain," I said. "Come to the alcove." I stepped into the hallway, locked my door behind me, and led him to the recessed space by the stairwell where a flickering emergency light made us both look like we'd been painted in restless strokes. He didn't try to touch me. Grace points for that. He held his hands in front of him, the way people do when they're demonstrating harmlessness without believing it about themselves. "What I said," he started, "was practiced," I finished. "Like an old line you've used to end other fights. Maybe not with me." He winced. It sounded terrible when I heard it out loud. I panicked. Kendra has trained you," I said. "And you've trained her. That's what relationships are. Ours just can't be a continuation of yours." He swallowed. The rain made a curtain sound, like 1,000 beads released at once. "I don't love her," he said. "Not like that. I never have." "This isn't about whether you're sleeping with her," I said. "It's about who gets to be your compass." Aaron looked away, jaw tightened. "She's been there for every bad thing. The divorce, the job I lost, when my dad got sick. She shows up. And yeah, she expects things in return. But she's earned—" "No," I said gently. "Love doesn't earn priority points. It chooses. In every moment. That's the part that terrified me. Not her presence. Your choice." Something in him slumped, the way rot underneath paint finally gives when you press a finger to it. "I hate conflict," he whispered. "I always have. She's a lot. It's easier to apologize to me for asking for basic respect." I heard the steel in my voice and didn't sand it down. "Let me be clear, because I need to be clear for myself. I won't be in a relationship where I'm told to apologize to your ex so she doesn't have a bad night." He closed his eyes. When he opened them, they were wet. "I'm sorry." "I know," I said. "But sorry is a door without hinges if it doesn't come with change." We stood in the stereo of rain and old fluorescent buzz. I remembered a younger version of myself in a different stairwell with a different man, where I had accepted apologies like coupons that expired before I could use them. I loved that girl, but I was not going to be her again. Not here, not now. Okay, he said, as if edging up to a cliff. What does change look like? You tell me, I said, because if I design it, you'll perform it, and performances don't last. He swallowed again, Adam's apple bobbing. Space, he said, like the word hurt. Therapy. Boundaries with Kendra. He said her name as if it were a switchblade he was finally turning away from himself. I delete the shared calendar, the daily check-ins. I stop calling her when I'm anxious and call a therapist. I stop asking you to bend because she's loud. My body was a weather vane. The arrow moved. That's a start, I said. But this can't be about punishing her or pleasing me. It has to be about you learning to hear yourself. He nodded, desperate. I'll do it. You can't promise that to me, I said. Promise it to yourself. Then keep it when no one's watching. We were both quiet. From somewhere below, a door slammed and a woman laughed too brightly. City life is a chorus of other people's acts. I need time, I said. We go no contact for a bit. Then we meet in neutral light, not at night and not on a doorstep. If you're doing the work, I'll see it. If you're not, I'll see that too. He reached for a pocket, slow, like approaching a skittish animal. May I text you updates? Not to sway you, just to be accountable. Accountability is for you, I said. Get a journal. Get a friend who isn't her. Get a therapist. If you need to tell me something essential, you can, but don't narrate the work to me. Do it or don't. I won't be your audience. I watched that land. He nodded, eyes rimmed in red. Okay. A pause. I'm sorry, he said again, smaller. Not for the performance of it, for the truth of it. Good, I said. Keep the truth. It weighs more, but it holds. Back inside my apartment, I leaned my forehead to the wood. I did not cry. I made tea and texted my daughter goodnight because the habit of showing up for the right people is one I refuse to give up even when I am disciplined about the wrong ones. The next morning, my phone buzzed with a number I didn't recognize. I let it go to voicemail. An hour later, a text. Hi, Elena. This is Maya, Aaron's sister. We'd met once, a holiday thing with a too-dry roast and a playlist that over-indexed on 90s alt. She'd been watchful, kind in the way of people who've seen history repeat too many times. I called her back during lunch, sawdust on my forearms, a sandwich balanced on my thigh. I'm not here to lobby, she said before I could brace. I'm here to apologize for not saying it sooner. The pattern, Kendra's gravitational pull. He orbits her. We've all let it go on. He won't hear it from me. He might hear it from silence. Silence, the most expensive gift. I'm not trying to punish him, I said. I'm trying not to abandon myself. I know, she said, and her voice warmed. If you decide to stay gone, I won't blame you. If you decide to try, I won't blame you either. But protect your spine, Elena. My brother is good. He's also weak where she is concerned. Thank you, I said. The words placed a hand on my back, steady and firm. That evening, I did a thing I haven't done in years. I laid out my non-negotiables on paper. Equal voice, no triangulation. Boundaries honored in public, not just promised in private. No apologies I don't owe. I taped the list inside my pantry door like a tiny building code for a life. Over the next 2 days, the temperature of Aaron's messages shifted. Fewer words, more ownership. I've booked a therapist for next week. I told Kendra I need space. She didn't like it. I didn't back down. I didn't reply, just read them like weather reports from a coastline I might or might not return to. Then, just when I was beginning to believe the sky might hold, Kendra found another way to rain. At 7:14 p.m. on day 6, my phone lit with a screenshot from an unknown number. The header read Ken, then a heart, then a thread of blue bubbles. After everything I've done, you'll throw me away for a contractor? She'll leave. They all leave. I'm the one who stays. Remember who kept you alive when your dad died. Remember who knows where every body is buried. The last line was followed by a winky face that made my skin crawl. A second message followed from the unknown number. This is Tasha. I work nights with Aaron at the cafe sometimes. He's not okay. He asked me not to involve you. I'm involving you anyway because sometimes men don't know what help looks like. I stared at the screen until the words doubled. The building code in my pantry hummed softly like a refrigerator. I typed back. Thank you for the heads up. I won't reach out to him tonight. But I see it. Tasha responded with a thumbs up and then, unexpectedly, He's worth saving, not your job to do it. Maybe just worth not throwing away if he starts saving himself. I closed my phone, set it face down. The city outside my window went on being itself. Sirens in the distance, a neighbor's laugh, the steady thrum of a life that would continue with or without this particular love. I rinsed a mug and set it beside another on the counter, empty, as a prompt or a warning. I couldn't tell which yet. I slept that night with my boots by the bed, a contractor's superstition about being ready to stand when something gives way. Morning always reveals what the night only threatens. The morning after Tasha's message, I woke up to the kind of heavy quiet that comes when the world hasn't yet decided if it's going to fall apart or hold together. The coffee brewed in slow drips, and for once, I didn't check my phone. I just watched the light crawl across the counter and thought about how strange it is that love, when bent the wrong way, can start to sound like debt collection. When I finally looked, there was one new message from Aaron. Can we meet for coffee today? Just talk. Neutral ground. I stared at it for a full minute. Neutral ground. The words people use when they know they've already contaminated the battlefield. Still, curiosity is its own gravity. And I needed to see if the man who stood in the rain that night was still the one holding the same umbrella, or if he'd finally let it go. The cafe was downtown, somewhere neither of us ever went. Small, quiet, the kind of place that smelled like roasted beans and clean slates. I got there early, habit from years of meeting clients who never showed on time. Aaron walked in at 10:02, looking worn but cleaner somehow, not on the outside, but in his posture. Like shame had finally exhausted itself into honesty. He sat. Thank you for coming, he said. I didn't come for you, I said. I came for clarity. He nodded. Fair. He pulled out his phone, thumb hovering, then turned it toward me. Messages. From Kendra. Dozens of them, long and erratic, sometimes begging, sometimes venomous. You'll regret this. She's turning you against your real family. I've known every version of you. She won't last a season. You're killing me. And then a final one sent 2 nights ago. After everything I've done for you, you're choosing her? Fine, lose me and see how empty you feel. I scrolled in silence, my stomach tightening with each line. There it was. Not friendship. Control disguised as loyalty. Aaron said quietly, You were right. It's not love, it's ownership. She doesn't know who she is if she's not managing someone else's life. Then why did it take me leaving for you to see it? I asked. He looked down at his hands. Because I was afraid. She's been there through every bad thing. Divorce, losing dad, the dark months. And when someone saves you, even a little, you start believing you owe them forever. I let that sink in. Then I said, There's a difference between gratitude and servitude, Aaron. One builds, the other chains. He looked up at me, eyes glassy but determined. I've started therapy. First session was yesterday. I nodded once, not impressed, not skeptical, just processing. And Kendra? I asked. She's not taking it well, he said. She showed up at the cafe the next morning, loud. I told her to leave. My manager documented it. HR got involved. They said if she comes again, they'll file a formal report. For a man who hates confrontation, that sentence carried the weight of someone learning to breathe underwater. That must have been hard, I said. It was. His voice cracked a little. But I realized something. I've never actually seen her angry at me before, just angry around me. And once it came my way, I finally understood what she's capable of. Silence sat between us for a beat too long. The hum of the espresso machine filled it in. I broke it. Aaron, you need to understand, this isn't going to be about her anymore. Not for me. If we ever rebuild, it has to start with you, alone. Not you escaping her, you finding yourself. He nodded. That's exactly what my therapist said. A small laugh slipped from me. Then listen to her. She sounds smart. That night, I got home to an unexpected quiet, the kind that comes after a storm, when the debris is still wet, but the air feels lighter. I made tea and sat by the window, watching rain smear the streetlights. My phone buzzed again. Not from Aaron this time, but from an unknown number. Kendra. You think you've won. You'll tire him out like the others. You don't know what he needs. I do. Then another seconds later. You don't deserve the kind of devotion he gives. And then a photo of her and Aaron. From months ago, a party I hadn't attended, her arm hooked through his, smiling too close, her eyes locked on the camera like she was sending a message directly through the lens. I stared at it until my pulse slowed enough for clarity to return. Then I did something my past self never would have done. I didn't reply. I didn't feed it. I took screenshots, sent them to Aaron with a single line. "She's escalating, handle it." He wrote back within minutes. "Already on it. Thank you for showing me. You don't deserve this." I believed him. For the first time, I actually did. The following week, Aaron's updates were few, but measured. He was attending therapy twice weekly. He had blocked Kendra's number. He told their mutual friends that he needed distance. The ripple effect was immediate. Kendra's social media turned vague and vengeful. All loyalty is rare, and real friends don't walk away when you set boundaries. She was performing heartbreak to an invisible audience, hoping someone, anyone, would play her savior again. But Aaron didn't bite. When he called me one evening, his voice was steadier. "I'm realizing how small my world got," he said. "She didn't want me close to anyone who didn't approve of her. You, my sister, even my coworkers. Every new connection felt like a threat to her." "That's not friendship," I said. "That's isolation." "I know," he said quietly. "And I think part of me liked it. Being needed that much. It felt like purpose." "Control often masquerades as purpose," I said. "Yeah," he sighed. "I'm learning that." There was a pause. Then, "Elena, do you think people can unlearn being controlled?" I thought of the long nights after my divorce when I couldn't decide if freedom was loneliness or relief. "Yes," I said finally, "but it takes longer than anyone wants it to, and it hurts more than you expect. You'll have to grieve her even if she was toxic." He didn't answer for a while. When he finally did, his voice was low. "Then I'll grieve her honestly this time." A week later, Aaron stopped by my work site, not announced, just quietly waiting by the truck, holding coffee in both hands. For me. I hesitated, then took it. He said softly, "I didn't come to talk about her. I came to thank you for making me see it. I know you don't owe me anything." I looked at him, tired eyes, still tender but firmer, like wood that's finally dried after a long storm. "You're right," I said. "I don't, but I'm glad you're seeing it anyway." He smiled faintly. "I'm trying to be someone worth seeing." And just like that, the scaffolding that had collapsed between us started to rebuild. Not with apologies, but with awareness. That night, I opened my pantry door and looked at the list I'd taped there days earlier. Equal voice, no triangulation, boundaries honored in public, not just promised in private. I underlined the last one with a marker. Then I added a fourth line, no rescue missions disguised as love. Because that's what this was, what it had always been. I wasn't here to save Aaron from Kendra. I was here to see if he could learn to save himself. Outside, rain began again. Softer this time, not punishment, but cleansing. I closed the pantry, poured 2 cups of tea, and set one aside. Maybe for him, maybe for closure, maybe just for proof that I still knew how to make space for something that could grow right this time. Whatever it was, it didn't feel like weakness. It felt like construction, the quiet kind you do before daylight returns. I used to think breaking points were loud. Arguments, slammed doors, words you can't take back. Turns out sometimes they arrive quietly, in the shape of a late-night phone call and a trembling voice on the other end. That night, Aaron's number lit up my screen around 1 a.m. "She's here," he whispered. "Kendra's outside my apartment." I sat up instantly, heart pounding. "What do you mean outside?" "She's been calling all night." I didn't answer. Then I heard her pounding on the door. "She's drunk. Says she needs to talk. Says you've poisoned me." "Call the police," I said, "now." "I don't want to make it worse." "Aaron," I cut in, voice sharper than I meant. "You're not making it worse. She already did." A pause, then a sigh, shaky, defeated, like someone letting go of years in a single breath. "Okay, I'm calling." By the time the police arrived, Kendra was screaming at the door, voice raw and slurred. The neighbors had woken up, lights flickering on across the hall. She was yelling things like, "You're not yourself anymore," and "She's turning you into a stranger." Aaron told me later she tried to push past the officers, that she kept saying she just wanted to fix things. When they led her away, she looked him dead in the eye and said, "You'll regret choosing her." He didn't answer. He just stood there, silent, the way a man looks when the illusion finally shatters. The next morning, he filed for a restraining order. When he told me, I was sitting in my truck outside a job site, the hum of the AC filling the silence between us. "She's never done that before," he said softly. "Not to me, not where people could see." "That's because you've never told her no," I said. "You gave her an open door and she built her house in it." He nodded slowly. I know. My therapist says I've been living in guilt so long, I mistake boundaries for cruelty. That line hit me harder than I expected, because it wasn't just about him. I'd done the same thing once, with my ex-husband, with my own family. Saying yes to keep the peace until the word no felt like violence. Maybe that's why I hadn't written Aaron off completely. He wasn't malicious. He was conditioned. And breaking that kind of conditioning hurts like pulling splinters from the heart. 2 days later, Kendra started her next campaign. Mutual friends called Aaron to say she was worried about his mental health. Someone from his gym told him she'd been there crying, claiming he's in danger of being manipulated. Manipulated. The irony nearly made me laugh. But instead of reacting, Aaron forwarded the text to his therapist and blocked the numbers. Then he called me. "I'm sorry this is still touching your life," he said. "I swear I'm handling it." "I know you are," I said. "You don't owe me apologies for someone else's choices." He hesitated. "Can I see you?" Not to talk about her, just to breathe. We met in the park near the river. The air smelled like cut grass and early summer. For once, his shoulders weren't hunched. He told me about therapy, about learning to name things, emotional enmeshment, guilt cycles, codependency. He said it like vocabulary for a language he'd finally begun to understand. She'd convinced me that her pain was my responsibility, he said. Every time she cried, I'd fix something, buy groceries, cancel plans, stay over so she wouldn't feel alone. I thought that was compassion. "It's not compassion when it empties you," I said. "It's control wearing sympathy's clothes." He smiled faintly. My therapist said the same thing. She called it emotional hostage-taking. I laughed quietly. She's good. Aaron took a slow breath, then reached into his bag and handed me something. A folded sheet of paper. "It's a copy of the restraining order," he said. "I thought you should have it, in case she ever tries to contact you." The sight of it, official, cold, stamped with a case number, made my chest tighten. It wasn't relief. It was grief for what it took to get here. "Thank you," I said softly. He nodded. "I'm not proud of how long it took, but I'm done being scared of her anger." That week, Kendra's story began to unravel publicly. Her colleagues stopped engaging with her cryptic posts. Mutual friends who'd seen her outburst at Aaron's building reached out to him, apologizing. Even her sister messaged him, saying, "We've all tried to tell her. Maybe now she'll listen." Aaron didn't respond to any of them. He was learning the power of silence, how sometimes the best revenge is not being available for chaos. We started seeing each other again, cautiously. Simple things. Morning coffee, a walk, dinner once a week. No declarations, no labels. Just small proofs of peace. He told his therapist he wanted to understand how to be present without performing. She suggested he bring me to a session. I agreed, though my stomach twisted with old reflexes. I'd been in couples therapy before, the kind that turned into endurance training for denial. But this was different. In that small sunlit room, the therapist asked questions that cut to the bone. When you imagine safety, what does it look like? When you feel responsible for someone else's emotions, where did you first learn that? Aaron answered honestly, voice trembling. "I learned it from Kendra," he said, "and from my parents, and maybe from every woman I've ever tried to keep happy so I wouldn't lose them." The therapist nodded. "And what happens if you stop trying to keep them?" He looked at me then, really looked. Maybe I finally keep myself. Something inside me softened. For the first time since that night on the deck, I believed we might actually make it through. Not back to what we were, but forward into something real. Of course, peace doesn't arrive unchallenged. A week later, Kendra sent one last email to Aaron, his manager, and his HR department. A sprawling, unhinged manifesto accusing him of emotional abandonment and me of psychological manipulation. It was desperate, messy, and ultimately self-destructive. HR logged it, blocked her domain, and informed the front desk of the restraining order. Aaron called me after, voice calm. "It's over," he said. "She's officially burned every bridge." "Good," I said. "Now build something better." He paused. "With you?" "With yourself first," I said. "Then we'll see where that leads." That weekend, we went hiking, our first real outing since everything imploded. The air was crisp, the trail muddy from last night's rain. Halfway up, he stopped and turned to me. "You know," he said, "if this were a movie, this would be the part where I say something dramatic like, 'I don't deserve you.'" I smirked. "Good thing this isn't a movie." He laughed, and the sound was genuine. Not the nervous kind, not the one that asks for forgiveness. Just light. When we reached the summit, we stood there, silent, the wind lifting our hair. Down below, the river shimmered, and for once, nothing felt unfinished. I realized then that closure isn't a door slamming. It's the quiet click of one finally staying shut. And beside it, maybe, another door beginning to open. Slow, careful, but real. 6 months later, my mornings felt different. Quieter, but not lonely. The world had steadied into something that finally made sense. Sometimes healing doesn't announce itself. It just replaces the noise with stillness. Aaron and I had stayed in each other's orbit, cautious but intentional. He kept his therapy appointments. He respected boundaries. He stopped explaining, stopped defending, stopped performing. And little by little, I started to believe it wasn't an act. It was growth. One morning, I drove to his place, or rather, the place that was becoming ours. The lease papers sat on the counter, still unsigned. We'd made the decision slowly, over months of coffee and long walks and hard, honest conversations. When I arrived, he was sitting on the floor, surrounded by boxes labeled books, kitchen, and memories. He looked up at me, smiling the soft kind of smile you can't fake. "Guess who finally learned how to label things before packing," he said. I laughed. Miracles do happen. He stood, dusted off his hands, and reached for one of the boxes. Inside were framed photos. Most were of his family, a few of us, and a few of friends. Then, at the bottom, a picture of Kendra. College graduation, arms around him, grinning at the camera. He stared at it for a long moment. Then, without drama, he placed it face down in the box, marked old files. I didn't say anything. He didn't need a performance for closure. The silence between us said everything. We moved in together 2 weeks later. The first morning in the new apartment, I woke to the smell of coffee. Aaron was in the kitchen, shirt half tucked, humming off key while trying to figure out the espresso machine. "Careful," I said, walking over. "You're about to create a caffeine explosion." He grinned. "You doubting my skills, Vargas?" "Absolutely," I said, and stole the mug from his hand. We both laughed. The kind of laugh that lives in the body, the kind that doesn't check if the other person is still mad. A few weeks later, we had friends over for dinner. Nothing fancy, just takeout and candles. It wasn't lost on either of us that the last time we'd hosted anything together, everything had fallen apart. But this time it was different. The air wasn't heavy. The laughter wasn't strained. And when one of Aaron's coworkers mentioned an old memory of him and Kendra, Aaron didn't flinch. He simply said, "Yeah, that chapter's closed," and kept the conversation moving. No discomfort, no lingering ghosts, just life. After everyone left, I started clearing plates. Aaron joined me, bumping my shoulder playfully as he grabbed the dish towel. "You know," he said, "I kept thinking tonight how easy it felt. No tension, no pretending." "That's what happens when you stop hosting ghosts," I said. He leaned against the counter, watching me. "You taught me that." I shook my head. "You taught yourself. I just refused to be the distraction." He smiled. "Either way, I'm grateful." That night, after the lights were off and the quiet settled, I lay awake beside him, thinking about how far we'd come. 6 months ago, I'd walked away from a man who told me someone else was more important. Now, here we were, two people sitting at the same table, finally equal. I remembered something my therapist once told me after my divorce. The hardest part of starting over isn't trusting someone new. It's trusting yourself not to settle for less again. And she was right. Aaron had rebuilt his boundaries, but I'd rebuilt my own compass. Neither of us was saving the other anymore. We were just walking side by side, both of us carrying tools instead of baggage. A few weeks later, Aaron's therapist asked us to join one final joint session. It wasn't to solve anything, more like a closing chapter. When she asked Aaron how he defined love now, he thought for a moment and said, "It's not rescue, it's respect. It's making room without losing space." Then she turned to me. "And for you, Elena?" I smiled. "It's when two people can sit at the same table and neither one has to shrink to fit." Aaron reached for my hand, steady, not possessive. And for the first time in a long time, I realized I didn't feel like someone's second choice. I just felt chosen. Months later, we hosted another dinner. Small, quiet, just friends. No drama. No ghosts. When everyone left, Aaron started clearing the table, humming again. I grabbed 2 mugs, poured coffee, and set them side by side on the counter. He looked at me and smiled. "Equal seats?" I nodded. "Always." He leaned in, kissed my temple, and said, "You know, history doesn't have to hurt to matter." I smiled. "No, sometimes it just has to end before something better can begin." And that was the real story. Not of heartbreak, not even of betrayal, but but of boundaries, the kind you build like a home, nail by nail, until it's strong enough to live in. Because love doesn't mean choosing between peace and passion. Sometimes it means choosing both and never apologizing for it.